The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and welcome to another March Saturday. We hope you're enjoying the theoretical start of spring and that it's going well. So far it looks like it's going to be becoming more pleasant, but we'll see. I've learned since I've lived in Wisconsin never to try and forecast weather. This week we are bringing back a guest from the past to talk about where they have been, where they're going, and some of the other things she's doing. But before we get to her, I want to just introduce my co-host, John Drengler. John has been on once or twice before, and we really appreciate it. John, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Terry. Good morning.
Okay. And so now our guest is Candi Teachman. Candi runs Gray Hat Creations, and she was a guest on in 2021. And we're going to talk in the first segment about Gray Hat, but she's also running a nonprofit now, or president of a nonprofit now called Makers Together. And that is a really neat organization that we want to talk more about as well. And so we'll get to both of those. But before we do that, first of all, welcome, Candi.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Excellent. So let's start with the same background we did last time sort of thing. How did you get into starting Gray Hat? And when, what is it doing for you?
So I started learning as a hobby, learning metalsmithing a long time ago. And about 5 years ago, my husband said, you love doing this so much and you have all the ideas and you're a planner. You like to put things one step at a time. So why don't you take this and turn it into a business? Put the whole business plan together on how you would like to put one foot in front of the other and see where it goes. And so when I started that about in 2019, I was not only making the pieces, but wearing all the hats. Every solopreneur wears every single hat for every department. And I was trying to take the classic styles of jewelry that don't ever go out of style, but only come back on trend every few years and bring those into the mainstream so that people can find them more readily.
Okay. And so when you started this business, what were your hopes and dreams? What was your vision for it?
I really just wanted to stay a one or two person studio that designed like everything that was in my head. I'm always doodling. I'm always getting inspiration, especially when I'm out and about, about the town or taking a hike or somewhere. So I just wanted to be able to share those ideas because the style that I had, as I said, they're the kinds of things that you would see come on trend every decade or so. But then when you go to look for it to gift for someone later, it wasn't available. So stay small, but be able to give people the kind of thing that they're looking for all the time and would wear all of the time.
Okay. And so how did you go about learning how to sell your products?
I come from a marketing and advertising background. I actually started as a graphic designer in publishing. So I already had some of the marketing and the design aspects started there. And I had done retail in the past. So working one-on-one with people to make a decision on what it was that they were trying to buy was something that I already had some pieces to as well. So I took all the little jigsaw puzzle pieces and put those together and then throw in podcast after podcast and discussion groups and business networking, and you get a whole melting pot of how to get it done.
Okay, so one thing I noticed as your website has evolved too, that you talk on the website about the focus on stories and storytelling jewelry. Could you talk about that a little bit?
So that was a lot of fun. When COVID came and the shows all closed, I went the virtual route, doing virtual shows in Facebook. And in order to sell in Facebook, you have to learn very quickly how to tell your story. And as I did that, other people opened up and told me theirs. And I realized that a lot of people want to gift something based on a memory or based on a tiny little tidbit of something that they share with that person. For instance, my mom's garden always had cardinals in it, and I'd like to give her something reminiscent of that. Or my nieces consider art is life. How do we gift something like that? They're tiny little snippets. They're not entire biographies, but those little bitty stories people carry with them. And when somebody says, oh, I really like your necklace, that's so cute, they want to tell that story that goes with it.
So, Candi, just to add to that, how do people communicate those sorts of insights and needs in a way that you're hearing it and inspiring you in your jewelry design and development?
On Facebook or Instagram, when somebody sends a quick message or puts a comment out there, I really like this. It reminds me of fill in the blank. That usually shoots off ideas, here, there, and everywhere. Or I'll get a direct message from someone who didn't want to share it with the general public. So, I really loved that piece that you did, or that idea, or that quote that you shared. It really made me think of XYZ thing. And then we'll take it into a conversation back and forth, narrowing things down.
You take those ideas and that feedback as well when you take your work, let's say, to an art fair or a show or an exhibit as well?
I love sharing the stories that people give. I'll ask them if they've asked me for a custom piece or not. This was a great idea that you had. I've never heard of it before. Is it okay for me to share that as something that just came up in conversation? And that's how people connect. And it's all about being able to tell a story and to get one back, the echo almost that goes back and forth. So it's been pivotal in going into the in-person shows and having conversations with people and using those as conversation starters.
You find over these years, these 5 years or so since you started, that this approach to customization and being on trend and needs has helped Gray Hat differentiate yourself from others doing jewelry design? And
it has. For one thing, and kind of selfishly, it's helped me to figure out how to tell my own stories with the pieces that I design that I'm going to have available out there in inventory. Narrow it down to something small and make it a message that's bite-sized. But then it's also been great for anyone who's ever bought a piece from me. They've happily shared their story of how we made it and how I try to add to those stories at the end by sharing in progress photos and sharing a video at the end, so that the story doesn't end there. It's this person who has bought this gift for somebody has now added their thumbprint to it. So that makes it that much more shareable for their experience.
So your custom creations drive your jewelry that you sell at the shows, and your jewelry you sell at the shows then drive custom creations. So you're using networking effectively to build an entire business around custom and your own ideas.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And what do you like better? Custom or doing your own ideas?
I actually like the custom better. I like being able to talk to somebody, and I not only get that story, but I get to go back and forth. We end up having, a couple weeks of conversations as we figure out the design. And then when the design is done and I show them, this is how it was sawed out. This is how it was soldered together. And now I've brought them into my world, and I've given them a taste of the back end and a little bit of history. Because to me, a lot of this is about the traditional metalsmithing and the history of being on that list of people who've made it and done it. So, I love the custom. It's the best part.
So as you look back over the last number of years that you've been running this business, and the 4 years since we talked, what are the risks and rewards that you've seen from your business, and what does it mean to you?
The biggest risk is that I'm actually naturally an introvert, and I don't like talking to people. And so, doing the sales talk, doing the conversations, the whole thing is like against my nature. It's backward for me. So that is the hardest part, putting myself out there, putting my story out there, and then using that in order to start a conversation where they can then talk to me. and I can finally listen. That's what I like to do. So to me, above and beyond, that is the biggest risk that I have. But the biggest reward goes right with it in that I have a whole network of people that follow me in social media and that I have kept up with over the years because they've enjoyed not only their pieces, but being able to connect with other people, almost creating our own little community.
Okay. And there's a couple risks you also mentioned on your site. So let's talk about gluing your fingers together.
Yeah. Whenever you work with your hands, something's going to happen. But part of my process is taking the piece that needs to be cut out, take a print out and glue it down onto the sheet metal. And it is not at all unusual for me to realize that my thumb and my finger are now glued together. Go have to try and take those apart. Yeah. It's just inherent. Things happen. You're working with tiny little pieces, think about how big a pendant is and then all the pieces that go with it. So if you're going to glue something that small down, you're trying to push it down with your finger, you're going to get something on it.
Yeah. My father was a handyman and did a lot of house building and other things on his own. And he learned very quickly not to trust me with any tools because of the damage it did to me.
But yeah, I have a first aid kit right next to each one of my benches. My husband, I love him to death, and he said, you're going to have 2 of these so that they're easy to find.
Okay. So as you look at where you are today and selling your products, are you finding it a lot easier to find customers now? Has it grown, that ability grown, or is it still difficult for you?
Things have actually changed quite a bit over the last couple of years. So again, with COVID, I had to, everybody's favorite word, pivot, but I had to pivot over to virtual because the in-person shows had all closed. And that was going to be my mainstay, because I had actually built this in 2019. So I was just getting started. And then those shows started opening back up reliably a couple of years ago, and the virtual ones started to go away. So I am finally on the bright side of the pivot for that, and I'm in the shows, and I'm getting up to the number that I want to do. But I had to take some time to research which ones I fit in, because like any product-based business, you have to find the market and whether you fit into it with price point or with the other products that are there. So, I took 2 years to figure out which shows would work for that. And now I'm on the track to be able to consistently handle that load and be in the right place.
So Candi, when you're doing that targeting, you talk about your marketing, PR background stuff. It's really reaching the right customers that fit what you're looking to present and to do. And in doing so, have you also found that word of mouth as you've built the business and you've been back out at the shows, you're getting a lot of business generated also from prior customers or appearances as well?
Yeah, the best part about that little community I was talking about earlier is when you post that I'm going to be at this show, even if they can't be there, they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to let my friends know that's a great show and that they should stop by your booth." Even though I can't be there, I'm going to make sure that they know, because, that's the community and loyalty that we've put together.
Okay. So we're coming up to the point where we need to take our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and I'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back. We're glad you joined us this morning. Our guest is Candi Teachman with Gray Hat Creations and the nonprofit organization Makers Together. Before we continue our conversation with Candi, I'd like to tell you a little bit about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin. With offices in Appleton and Green Bay, we serve an 18-county area in Northeast Wisconsin, plus the Menominee County of Upper Michigan. We have over 50 volunteers, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs valuable and confidential mentoring at no cost. Areas of expertise include marketing, cash flow, accounting, financing, strategic business planning, workflow, HR, retail, and for and nonprofit best practices. In order to register for a no-cost and confidential mentoring session, or to learn more about Northeast Wisconsin SCORE, visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. Here you can learn about how SCORE and the chapter can assist you with starting or growing your own business. When visiting our website, you can complete an online application at no cost for a confidential mentoring session. Simply complete the form online and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost, and it offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas for your business. To get started, again, simply visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And in supporting entrepreneurs and small businesses like Candi's, SCORE is always looking for new mentors and subject matter experts. If you have experience that you'd like to share with others, helping from your area of expertise, we'd love to talk to you. Please go to that same website, score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, click on the volunteer button and fill out a short application. Someone from our office will get back to you and explain more. I'd love to have you on board with SCORE. So thanks again for joining us on Biz Talk. And now let's go back to our discussion with Candi. Candi, you were talking about over the years what you've developed and the type of customers, the type of designs, and you've got a really good business. You've gotten through COVID. You've gotten back to not only virtual, but back to the trade shows and stuff. But in hindsight, is there anything that you'd think about from the business standpoint that you would do differently?
First and foremost, I'd actually pair up with somebody as an accountability buddy. One of the hardest things I have is making sure that I stay on task and get everything done. When you're by yourself, you lose track of time really easily. And we have what we call blurs day, when you're not sure what day of the week it even is because you just don't keep track of the calendar. So the first thing I would do is get a friend or a colleague that, I'll ping you in a couple of days and see if you finished that. If you'll ping me in a couple of days later to see if I finished that. And a lot of times just that tiny little bit helps you to go, yep, I will stay on task for that one. So that's the big one. But the second one would be, making sure that, I just did the business plan and I did the goals. Because sometimes when you sit down to do that paperwork, you get that blank canvas syndrome where you're like, oh my goodness, I have all of these options and too many opportunities. And how do I put that all into one? And sitting down and actually writing it out and knowing that I can edit it afterward and make all of the changes that I need to get the final one done. If I just started it, that would have been so much easier.
So this happens with a number of entrepreneurs and small businesses. On one side, if you want to call it left brain, right brain, or however you want to look at it, here you are, this talented, passionate artist designing jewelry and designs and creatively. And then there's the business aspect of what you're doing at Gray Hat and making sure you stay profitable, you're investing properly, you have the right resources. How do you manage and balance those two aspects of your business?
I have designated times when I work on my bookkeeping and I work on the business side of it. So I will have a specific day and time and I'll block off 2 to 3 hours so that I can take care of that. When I want to do social media, I block that one off too. And then I make sure that I'm in my designated space for work so that I'm not looking at the other stuff that looks like it would be way more fun to build. And I can sit down and focus and concentrate on getting those done.
You ever have to say no to people, whether it's clients or others, just to be able to sure you prioritize your time?
Absolutely. There are times, one thing, I put everything on the family calendar so that it's my work. These are my work hours. And when somebody says, hey, I want to go do something on Friday, sorry, these are my work hours. I'm in the middle of a meeting that day, but can we reschedule for another one? But I treat it like a business from day one so that everyone else learns to do the same.
One thing I'll throw in there as you talk is that what I found with clients, especially creatives, are that they really don't enjoy that bookkeeping side a lot, and maybe the legal stuff. And doing what you've done and setting out a schedule and saying it's 2 hours this week and that's when I'm doing it has been a business saver for a couple of different businesses I've worked with, because they would leave their books for months
Mm-hmm.
and then not be able to figure it out. So that's a great way of doing it, and really think that's a direction that really helps you as you build your business going forward.
Absolutely.
Andy, do you see for Gray Hat Creations, do you see branching out or developing in any new areas in your designs or your offering?
I have a bunch of new techniques that I want to look on. One of my goals every year is to learn a new metalsmithing technique so that I can branch out into things that are more complicated, like lockets and hinges and all sorts of different fun things. So it's always on my list to expand. But also on my list is to take a prior skill and take that up to the next notch so that no matter what I'm working on now will still be as good, in my opinion, as what I start to work on down the road. I want to make sure that the quality continues all the way through.
Okay.
Good.
So we're at the point where we need to take our second break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Makers Together, a really interesting new nonprofit that Candi has helped co-found. And with that, we are listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score. Before we get back to our guest, Candi Teachman from Gray Hat Creations and Makers Together, we got a couple of announcements to make for you, just so people are aware of things. The first thing is that there are now some emergency nano loans available for Oconto County businesses. If you are impacted by the lack of snow and other adverse weather conditions, you can contact TEDCOR, which is the Economic Development Organization in Oconto County. So it's tedcor.org, and they can help you look into those loans that are meant to help people get over help get over some of the weather issues we had. The second thing I'm going to mention is that in less than a month, the NFL draft is taking place in Green Bay, and they're expecting hundreds of thousands of people and millions of dollars of impact. And if you're interested in either participating in events or seeing how you can get involved as a business or different things like that, there are a number of places you can go. The two I'll mention primarily is, first of all, greenbaywisconsin.gov. So greenbaywi.gov/NFL draft. Or you can also go to greenbay.com/draft25. And they'll have site logistics, visitor information, various events, business information, important one, road closures, but a lot of things you need to be aware of. But you can also find things at Discover Green Bay, on Broadway, on the Packers site. So it's a pretty big event that is going to bring a lot of people into Northeast Wisconsin. And the Packers and the NFL have done a great job of bringing community into it and getting things set up for that. So again, if you go to greenbaywi.gov/NFL draft or greenbay.com/draft25, you'll find out a lot more information on that. So with that, we're going to turn back to Candi. And Candi, we want to now talk about Makers Together. Could you explain to our audience what Makers Together is first?
Absolutely. So when we get asked, the first thing we say is that Makers Together introduces artisans and makers to the business side of creativity. So the long and the short of it is we introduce the business aspects of promoting your work to those who are used to making it, but not sure what kinds of decisions to make or where to take it from there.
Okay. And so why did you believe this organization was needed?
So when COVID hit, myself and a few other artisans were meeting in the business networking, all of the virtual business networking opportunities that were popping up. But unfortunately, the questions that we needed answered the answers weren't available in those networking groups because the in-person shows that a lot of us rely upon in order to sell our product were closing down, and we didn't have any idea where to go from there. And there are a lot of artistic specific questions about getting into galleries and how do I how do I set up a bio versus how do I set up an artist statement? And they're kind of foreign concepts to some people because you don't have to, you don't have to hear about it or worry about it. So we started meeting, just together to figure out what we needed to know because you don't know what you don't know. And then from there, we just grew based on sharing as a community the skill sets that everybody already brought to the table from other jobs that we had in previous lifetimes.
So was it very informal at first, or did you quickly move to set meetings and agendas and things?
We had set meeting times. We were meeting in the afternoons on Fridays every single week. And, when somebody could come, it was open door policy, just come as you could. And then we would, try and pick a topic. But, when we first started out, the first 3 or 4 months, it was how many topics are there? How many things do we need to know? What is it that we're seeing other people do, or what other brands have we all witnessed over the years that, how do I get that to work? So we, trying to come up with the topics list and as well as finding out where we could get the information if we couldn't cover it ourselves with our own expertise.
So did you pull in other resources, or were you able to find most of what you needed within your community?
We've done all of the above. We have invited people in to talk about topics such as social media. We, some of the, like, what is legal behind an LLC? Why would you become an LLC versus, working in other ways? What are other options? Those are things that none of us had the expertise to be able to answer. So we would bring someone in, but our range of professional understanding was pretty varied. We had somebody who was in marketing and branding. We had someone who had done bookkeeping, and we had someone who had done some of the selling and actually teaching in the process. So we had a lot of things that were covered just within our own little group.
So what made you formalize it as you were having this group? What made you decide we need to not only create a nonprofit, but we need to register it with the IRS and really make it a formal fundraising organization?
Well, the first thing was the amount of interest that we were getting. It's astounding the number of people that will say, I have this friend and they make XYZ and they're really good. Like, everybody says they're really good, but we don't know how to help them think about turning it into a business or how to sell it. And that comes up in almost every single networking conversation that we have. So the fact that there's a need out there and people who want to help others get that information was huge. So that was the first step. But then when we started figuring out the amount of work that was going to be required in order to sustain, anywhere from 10 to 20 people or however many people we were going to have, then we went the route of trying to get a nonprofit status so that we could, first of all, legitimize it, because a lot of us, we don't know if an organization really is what they say they are. And when you have that, the nonprofit status, it gives you that extra little, hey, let's check out these people. They're a .org. They're a nonprofit. They're out there to help people. They're not just trying to make money on whatever it is that's going on. So our big thing was that helps us to get our name out there. That helps us to get our information, but also the trust factor. And when you're working with creatives, they're busy. They're heads down making things. So that trust factor is huge.
So what led to then saying, okay, we need a board of directors. We need certain events and activities. How did you get there?
We tried to build that all when we went to become a nonprofit. It was more, let's just do it all the right way. Let's get all of our ducks in a row. So we set up the board of directors, and we set up our committee structure, and we sat down and we said, we want to get this all done in one giant sitting, so to speak, so that we don't have to piecemeal it as we go down the next few years. So we have 5 board members currently. They have all been members for a while, and they all bring different ideas and different mediums to the table as well, which has been fantastic. If anybody's got questions that are medium specific, they can get those answered. And then, we're looking ahead to how can we do some fundraising? How can we get our name out there and promote ourselves in the best light and in the best communication? And then we're working on developing our committee structure. We have all of the names for what we want to do, but how do we fulfill the roles? What is it that we need to prioritize? We're working on all of those, but it's evolutionary. That's the best thing about this, is it's not a set process because we haven't seen anybody do exactly this before. So we get to change and mold it the way that works best.
So the core of this has to be your membership. You can have the structure and the governance. Tell us a little bit about the members and how does one become a member?
Our membership is a vetted application process. You go to our website, makerstogether.org/membership. The application is on there, and we go through that process, to make sure that we are going to give you what you need. We've had people who have applied because they want the community aspect. They're not looking to learn very much in the business side of it, but they're looking to be a part of a community that has a lot of the same issues and a lot of the same questions that they have had to go through. And some of them want to offer their expertise, and that's the perfect light to do it. Becoming a member is a way of joining a group of like-minded people that not only they've been in your shoes, but you'll find that you have some kind of an expert level on whatever your background is that you'll be able to share. We haven't found anybody yet who hasn't had something that they could bring to the table. And so there's the give and the take, which for creatives is, you don't want to just take, you always want to be able to give back. And that's been a really fun thing to watch people do.
I see on your website, you refer to a term called CEOs. That kind of goes to what you're saying. Why don't you tell the listeners what that stands for and what it means to your members?
Yeah, so our CEOs are our standard pillars. So CEO stands for creativity, education, opportunity, and support. Those are the things that we want to make sure that we can offer. So creativity is in the idea of how can you think outside the box in order to solve this business solution? Because maybe what you're seeing or what people are advising isn't quite working for you. How can you think of it outside the box? Education, obviously, you don't know what you don't know. We bring topics every other week that are specific to either a small business problem or specific to an artistic issue, and then work on a workshop the following week for some hands-on development so that it makes sense as to where it might fit. Opportunities, we work on opportunities to get our members information out there to help them learn to promote themselves and get that, to get over that hurdle of maybe you're introverted, maybe you're shy, maybe you just don't know what your message is. So giving opportunities to be able to develop those and get your name out. And then, of course, the community of support. We have a Facebook group that is always open, and we love having questions come in. Or my favorite part is the wins. Every week we ask everybody, what's your win? What's your business win? What happened that went really well this week that you'd like to share? Because we have to learn to celebrate it. That's one of the hardest parts, I think, is a lot of the times you're working on problem solving and you forget to go, oh, yes, it's done. I finished it. I shipped it out. This is a good day.
So as you look across both Makers Together and Gray Hat, it's really interesting that as a self-described introvert, you've built a business and been a large part of a nonprofit that are heavily reliant on networking. How do you get over your introversion and in order to do the things you're doing?
There's a lot of screaming into pillows after I'm done with meetings, or, turning all the lights off and making sure it's dead silent. If I've had, a really good show, my favorite is when you go have a really good show, you've done 6 hours on your feet, and then you go home and you're like, don't people me right now. I mean, that's a phrase in the house. Don't people me right now. I'm done. But at the same time, if you think of it less as, networking, and you think of it more as having a conversation, or you think of it more as the storytelling. I like to listen, and I can't do that if I'm not around other people. If you try and come at it, again, that's part of that creativity. How do you think of it a different way so that it works for you?
So you talked about the education and networking. What type of member events are you having?
So every month we have an in-person event. Almost everything we do is virtual. That makes it easy for everybody to work on their own schedule to be able to get in. But every month we have a lunch It's usually the last Friday of the month, and the locations rotate around the Fox Cities area so that we can try to reach you where you are. And we encourage artisans, makers, supporters, or someone who just likes to have a creative conversation to come and just chit chat. There's no selling or anything, just chit chat. But then we also try to come up with ways that our people can promote themselves. Again, right now, in March and in April, we actually have the local artists showcase fall in the community foundation building, and our membership and Makers Together is represented there for the next 2 months so they can get their name out there and practice. Part of this is if you're not sure about getting on into a gallery, this is good practice for doing your write-up and, hanging it and how all the things work. So we try and make sure that it is where they are.
So one other thing you mentioned on your website that I thought was interesting was virtual co-working. Could you explain a little bit about that?
That's my favorite part, actually. On a Zoom call, we will have our membership come in and you work. It's a Monday morning or a Thursday morning. You can, have your water cooler, your coffee talk. And, if you don't feel like talking, but you just want somebody in the background while you're working, nobody's going to be offended. We all know that that's what we're there to do. So, I might be working in the studio and I'll put it on mute because what I'm doing is too loud. But everybody is excited to have other coworkers because what we find is, we're taking the loneliness out of working alone. It makes it easier to get things done because you have scheduled hours and then you have scheduled people to be with you.
Okay. So once again, could you just let people know how they can join or find out more information about Makers Together?
Absolutely. So we have Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Our handle is @makerstogether.org. And then our website has all of our information on it. You can go to makerstogether.org, or you can send an email to us. It's makers@makerstogether.org.
And I guess we should also mention that now you recently became a registered nonprofit and people can donate money as well to help out Makers Together if they're interested.
That would be helpful, yes. But we also like support in the form of speakers. If you are someone who helps small businesses with specific problems, we'd love to have a presentation. And then we're also looking to help our membership who grows beyond what we have to offer, and work with other organizations to tell them these things are available, places like SCORE, where they can go and get a one-on-one mentor because they feel that they're ready for it. So there are a lot of ways if anybody wants to help. We could definitely appreciate that help.
Okay. So we've talked about two organizations. How do you balance the work in those two organizations?
It's a continual work in progress. But the word of balance, I always find interesting because if you think about balancing, and doing measuring on weight, the weight doesn't stay the same, it shifts. And so more time needs to be spent in one or the other depending on what's coming up. So working with Makers Together, our board will help get things aligned so that if we know someone has a show coming up, then they have to focus on that for 2 weeks and get all their inventory or whatever ready. We'll help shift things around so that they have time to dedicate to that. And then same goes from the other direction. When Gray Hat has a lull, I use that in order to get, the social media or whatever projects I need to in Makers. But the main thing is to remember it's not going to be equal amounts of time every single day or every single week. You try and schedule in what you can and then make adjustments according to what deadlines and what projects are coming up.
So you started Makers Together to help community of artisans. How has it helped you individually?
Well, for one, I've gotten to meet some fantastic people. It's encouraging to meet others that have the same issues or have the same questions, because then you find out not only are you not alone, but you find out, okay, we need to address this, put it on the list. And so the people factor and one-on-one talking to people has helped me in being able to speak and get my story out there. That's probably the biggest one that I enjoy. But the fact that we all We'll share each other's posts in Facebook when we found something that we really like. We all like each other's pages. If we have a show, we'll try and get out to each other's shows. So we've really created a community that we're supporting each and every individual.
Okay. So we've reached the point where we're going to take our third and last break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back with Candi Teachman to wrap up the discussion on Makers Together and Gray Hat Creations. Talk to you after these messages. I would like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing & Associates. Hailing & Associates help small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan ahead, thereby helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing & Associates, personal connection, positive results. Thank you to Johnson Financial Group. Wherever you are in your life or the life of your business, Johnson Financial Group works with you to understand your goals, matching the right banking and wealth services to help you complete your mission. Thanks to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. The paper contains relevant and useful information about the business community in this region. We would also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation in support of Biz Talk and Score Northeast Wisconsin. So as we go into this last segment, Candi, could you let people know how they can find out more about Gray Hat Creations and Makers Together?
Absolutely. So Gray Hat, you can find my website, grayhatcreations.com. That's GRAY. You can also send me an email if you have any questions. I'm at hello@grayhatcreations.com. And then social media, I have Facebook and I have Instagram. The handle for that is @grayhatcreations. For Makers Together, our website is makerstogether.org. And you can email us at makerstogether.org. Tried to make that as easy to remember as possible. And then on social media, we've got a LinkedIn page, and then we have Facebook and we have Instagram, and you can find us at makerstogether.org.
Okay, great. And for our listeners too, I strongly recommend go out and look at Gray Hat Creations. The breadth of offerings is impressive, and to see how much Candi has grown and done in the last 4 years is an amazing thing to do. So go out and take a look at that. Where do you see Makers Together going in terms of maybe potential shows or doing things as a group over the next few years?
Well, this year is huge for us. We are actually turning 5 this year. We're celebrating our 5th anniversary in May, and we're doing a little celebration on May 10th. You can find the information on our website. So with our 5th year anniversary coming up, we're looking at how can we get our information out to the general public. So you can find us at the Appleton Farm Market this summer. We'll be there for a couple of Saturdays, and we're looking to start creating some public workshops. So keep your eyes open for that. Little things on how to talk, how do you promote, how do you come out of your shell a little bit so that you can show what you create. It doesn't even have to be about selling, but you should be proud about what it is that you create. And we're working on networking with other organizations to see how we can do member shows in gallery style so that people can see what it is that they do and in turn see what it is that we do.
Okay.
Candi, for a self-proclaimed introvert, your passion and your championing of building a community of business-minded artisans is quite admirable. And I think part of going forward is how do you continue to build this momentum? What do you kind of see past the season coming up for shows and events? How do you see building the organizations in tandem and continuing with this mission?
The first thing is that we listen to our members and we listen to the organizations to find out what their issues are. So we make sure that what we have is fresh, and we make sure that we keep up with whatever the ongoing questions are. So learning and trying to find out what everybody needs in the now, that keeps us going.
Okay. Candi, it's been a great show. We really appreciate having you on. And to our listeners, this will be on a podcast available on iTunes and YouTube and other platforms next Wednesday. We really appreciate you tuning in to WHBY on this Saturday morning to listen in as well. This is all greatly appreciated. Once again, you can go to our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin and hear previous episodes. We've got about the last 6 years out there. We really appreciate having you here. I hope you've had a great weekend, and thanks again for listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY.